Mic check, mic check. Can everybody hear me okay? Everybody in the back, top row in the flannel, team flannel, we good? Awesome. Thank you guys for joining us today. We'll give you guys another minute or so to settle in. Hope you guys are paying attention to the end of that last seminar. Very key learning lessons there that we're going to talk about today. First of all, thank you, New York, for welcoming a strange-looking kid from LA to come all the way to this side of the country to enjoy your beautiful weather. I enjoy it immensely every time. I get sick of that sunshine. I worry about being sunburned and stuff all the time. But today we are going to talk about one of my favorite styles of fishing, chasing monster crappies. I wish. But seriously, we're going to talk about trophy fishing. It's a little bit of a clickbait title, right? Oh man, he's going to give up his secret to trophy bass fishing. And here's the real secret. It's taken me an entire lifetime of continued learning opportunities to try to get less and less terrible at fishing. That's really all it is, guys. All right, I got to spend a couple days with the Yeti crew down in Louisiana right before I came to the show, and it was a really interesting learning opportunity. And that I got to have some real conversations about some of the top 1% of guys in their field. Award-winning barbecue guys, spear fishermen, hunters, and even fly fishermen. I was like, man, I can learn something from a fly fisherman. This is pretty interesting. And we had a lot of the same kinds of discussions that definitely apply to trophy bass fishing in particular. And one of the most fascinating points that I learned was talking to my new friend Chris, who is this badass barbecue dude. He looked like a little bit older version of Woody Harrelson. You guys know who Woody is? White Men Can't Jump? Man, I'm totally aging myself right now. But he was telling me how he was getting frustrated because people that were inspired by what he was doing in barbecue always looked to him for the shortcut, the secrets to being the trophy barbecue guy. And he made an interesting point in that your level of expertise in barbecue is directly correlated to your ash pile. And I was like, man, that makes so much sense. And the equivalent in the fishing side of things is time on the water. And no matter what it is that you want to get good at, experience is the best teacher. And you just really have to go out and do it. So take some of the concepts that we're going to be discussing today and build on them as a foundation and put your own twist on it. You honestly shouldn't believe anything I tell you, because who knows if I'm making it up or not, but I am. Or anybody else up here. Hopefully they're giving you insight into their actual real world experiences and not just making things up on the fly. But that's where it comes down to you guys to really take ownership of that and go out there and learn and be willing to fail, because those failures are your greatest learning opportunities. This is my second or third trip into this portion of the country. The last time I was here, I was fishing with some of our guys representing big bass streams, and I got to show firsthand on bodies of water that they've been fishing their entire lives that this lure right here can catch fish in Jersey. I caught one on that day. I caught one on a giant topwater bait that same day. And I think Justin's still haunted by the big one that followed another big bait straight to the boat that day. Here in this area. And it's been a couple years since I've come through here now, so I've seen a tremendous growth in interest and participation, and honestly some pretty amazing fish catches for this part of the country. 6-pounders, 7-pounders, 8-pounders, big smallmouth. I've got tons of videos and photos from the squad where they're catching smallmouth bass on an 8-inch mag draft swim bait. Like, gone. That's kind of wild. Doesn't that sound a little kind of like fun though? Is that something you guys would like to experience on your own? All right, so I'm gonna try and give you guys 27 years of experience in the next 25 minutes. All right, I'm gonna do my best, but I'm probably gonna miss a couple things. Please, if you can, stick around for my second seminar. We're doing it in a little inverse today. We're talking about trophy fishing tactics and baits and techniques specifically, but really the fundamentals of fishing lead up to this seminar. So we're going a little Pulp Fiction on you guys. We're just kind of mixing it up, a little remix. All right, so you might look at that 8-inch mag draft and be like, dude, that thing won't work where I fish, let alone its bigger brother, the 10-inch. Okay, but we're gonna talk about that fundamentals just as a learning opportunity here. Any of you guys in here fishing this little gem? Anybody know what it is? No? Raise the hands. All right, 3 or 4 you guys. Well, this is a swimbait. Okay, and a swimbait is defined by that little boot tail and the swimming action that's derived from it. It's not the size of the bait that makes it a swimbait. It's a swimming mechanism. So that's the same swimming mechanism as you find in its bigger brother. Okay, the difference is this is a big bait. That's a whole different class. So when people use the term swimbait intermittently with or interchangeably with a big bait, that's not always correct, because somebody will call a big topwater walk the dog pencil bait. I like his enthusiasm as a swim bait, and this is not a swim bait, but it is indeed a big bait. All right, so that's a little pet peeve of mine. Just want to help educate the culture here. All right, but with every parallel style of bass fishing, there's now a big bait equivalent. So it doesn't matter if you're a jerk bait guy, if you're a worm guy, if you're a finesse swim bait guy, you can take experiences from your fundamental traditional fishing. Oh, look at that. That was really hard to do. I saw 3 hands. The rest of you guys don't enjoy catching fish? I mean, this is it. It's that easy. Hey, buddy. Okay, but this is a perfect learning tool that you can take lessons and apply on just a bigger scale. Okay, this is a high engagement lure. You're gonna get lots of learning opportunities in the form of bites, fish catches. It's really a big mistake that I see happening all the time, especially with new blood into the fishing culture, young, old, whoever. Guys that come into fishing be like, man, that really looks fun. Like, fishing does look dope. Like, I want to be able to say I caught a giant bass on a bait like this, but they skip the fundamentals. They skip, you know, the little stepping stones, the little learning curves, the 6-inch bait. All right, they skip that and they go straight to the 10-inch bait, and instead of getting maybe 17 to 30 bites a day locally, or actually 70 is what you said yesterday, these guys are catching 70 fish a day on the 6-inch bait and getting 70 opportunities to learn, good and bad, but they're skipping that and they're going, oh man, I'm gonna be a hero or a 0 today. And they might get 1 to 5 opportunities on a really good day. So can you see there's a big gap in learning? You're just not getting the engagement. It's like, any of you guys basketball fans in here? Okay, it's just like basketball or any other sport. You got to see that ball go through the hoop, right? And build confidence. So you warm up with layups, free throws, mid-range shots, then you can step out. Then you can step out. You can start taking more complicated contested shots, leaners, so on and so forth. It's the same concept in fishing. Do not overlook the importance of fundamentals. So stick around for part 2 of that. But this thing is a swim bait. Okay, and I'm gonna use this as an opportunity to figure out how I should be applying this bait. Like, we got about 7 feet, 8 feet of water here in this tank. So number 1, I'm trying to figure out what zone I should be presenting that bait. I wonder how many bites. Someone should count how many bites I'm gonna be getting on this thing, on this cast. Before you get a positive engagement from that fish, right? And a positive reaction and engagement from the fish could be something as simple as a follow, but hopefully it's a bite. All right, man, come on. So I'm going to use lessons learned from this high engagement bait. I'm going to be, all right, I'm going to see if they want it just winding it right away when I hit the water. And hey, look at that positive engagement. That fish chased that bait, but it veered off. So every time I'm making a cast, every time I make a decision, whether it's your lure selection, your color, how you're fishing it, the pace, you're asking those fish questions. Okay, do you like this? Is this good enough for you to make that commitment and make that mistake, right? So I got a little bit of a positive engagement on that last cast. It's fishing it super high. Well, let me try something different. Okay, and this is the process of elimination that I'm going through in my head. I approach my fishing with a scientific method and approach, and you're really eliminating variables. So now I'm gonna try something, I'm gonna let it sink a foot. Okay, I'm gonna try the same cadence. Oh, look at that. It was as simple as that minor adjustment. Okay, learning opportunity there. Should I do it? There's no hook point on there, unfortunately. Come on. It's, oh, dang. I thought I was gonna be able to pull it off there. Sorry, guys. But you see, if I didn't get a positive engagement on that first attempt, well, okay, let me try something different. Let me sink it all the way to the bottom. All right, hits the bottom. Oh, hey, look at that. As soon as it hit the bottom, I got a bite. So that tells me the next time I make a cast, I really better be ready and anticipate that bite. Super high engagement. I'm pretty sure some of the stores are already sold out of this thing. So if you guys do want some, make sure you go to Susquehanna Fishing Tackle, pick up some screw heads and some 3-inch Megabass swim baits. But do you see the points I'm trying to make here? Okay, because all those things that I learned with this little high engagement bait will transfer all the way up the line. And I'm just going up from a 3-inch swim bait to a 6-inch swim bait now. And there was a point in time when if you asked a younger version of myself, if I can go out on my home lake where I fished really hard with finesse, light line, spinning rods, like, dude, bass aren't gonna eat that here. It was all mindset. Okay, so I'm gonna take a bait that's got a little bit less potential for engagement. And the general rule is the bigger the bait, the bigger the fish, but that directly correlates to a drop in engagement. Okay, you're kind of eliminating the bulk of the smaller fish that represent the majority of a population in any given body of water. Now you're going inverse. You're just targeting the few bigger ones. It's always kind of like a population pyramid. There's a couple big ones at the top, and then, you know, some medium ones, some medium ones, and a whole bunch of dinks. So now you're going to try and appeal to, oh boy, you're going to try and appeal to that bigger class of fish. But you got to be okay with understanding that there is going to be a likelihood that you're not going to catch as many. But you're going to appeal to a whole new, oh boy, there's already one bite. And see, this is a special bait in that it's almost a perfect tournament bait because it can, I actually stopped fishing this thing because it catches too many 2 to 8 pound fish, if that makes sense. Like, it's a real problem because when I'm out there targeting the biggest fish that I can catch, you know, the brand is Big Bass Dreams. It's not any Bass Dreams. So I really have to hyper focus and try to catch above average fish. But this is a great learning opportunity to take those same concepts with that 3-inch bait. Okay, I'm gonna probably sink it out to the middle, towards the bottom of the water spectrum here. I'm gonna find that perfect speed where I can feel that tail thumping. I got that bait doing that shimmy. Oh, I got one fish's attention there. Let's see if I can get him fired up. Come on, buddy. You can do it. It's showtime. We had a little pep talk right before the show, remember? And if you can keep that fish's focus on this lure, I hope some of you guys are able to actually catch the tail end of that dog seminar. Did you guys, anybody here see that? You see he had a fishing rod with a lure on it, and he had a predator, and inherently a predator in that dog, hyper focused on this bait, right? And he's talking about watching its body language, reading it, and triggering that pouncing instinct. It's something that all predators have. That's why when you're being chased by a bear, or actually when you're being confronted with a bear or a lion or some other kind of predator, they tell you not to run Well, that triggers that response. Keep that in mind when we're dealing with fish here. These things are all predators. So it's a lot of the same innate behavior. All right. So you're going to take lessons learned here. You're going to build a lot of confidence. You're going to catch a lot of those 2 to 8 pound fish. I've seen 10 pounders caught on this too. But if you really want to up the size of your fish catches, take the next step. All right. You've built some confidence. You've made some layups. All right. I'm going to take some in-game shots from the mid-range. Now you're going to throw the 8-inch. Like, man, that is substantially bigger. 8-inch bait, right? A little bit more complex. A lot of the same concepts, but I have to make an adjustment. Now I'm going from maybe a 1 ounce bait to a 2.5 ounce bait. I got to step up my line size so I don't break this thing off when I make my Hail Mary cast and lose my $20 swim bait. Okay, I got to step up to a bigger rod, heavier power, bigger reel, something like Alexa 300, 400 size reel, heavier line to both efficiently present the bait and hopefully execute on your opportunity and land the fish. Okay, but ultimately it's the same thing I've been doing and talking about for the last 10 minutes, just on a bigger scale. So I've already built a little bit of the puzzle. I figured out that these fish don't want this thing up on the surface right now. I'm gonna let it sink towards the bottom, keep it towards that lower half of the column, and I'm gonna go out there and fish those same high percentage areas, kind of just slow roll this bait and see what happens. And it's an interesting phenomenon with big baits and swim baits in particular, in that they have an immense drawing power to them. Okay, it sparks that predatory curiosity. Curiosity killed the cat. Well, that's because the cat is a vicious killer. And so are all other predators. So these bass can be triggered through their curiosity. And the bigger you go, even with this smaller class of fish represented in this tank, the more interest you can draw. Let's see if we can validate that concept here by going even bigger, because even from what I saw up here, they didn't really respond to that, right? Those questions that I asked, they were just like, meh, cool story, bro. Like, we want no part of that nude color or whatever it was. So I'm gonna ask a different question. Be like, all right, maybe you want me to put my big boy pants on. We got a 10-inch mag draft here. This is a 6 ounce bait, pretty hefty, right? This is gonna kind of max out my tackle. I'm usually fishing this thing on 30-pound line, big 400 size reel, 10, 11 power rods. I got to be able to move that bait both on the cast while I'm fishing it and when a fish decides to eat it. And I used to actually have a lot of the girlfriends, a lot of the younger people throwing the 8-inch when we were catching fish on this, because it's a little bit more physically strenuous and people just couldn't do it for long periods of time, thinking that they would get more engagement, right? If we're catching 1 to 5 fish a day on this, man, they should be getting 5 to 20 bites on the 8-inch. What? And in this case in particular, sorry boys, did I shamu you down there? We are getting way more engagement from even those mid-sized fish, those 3 to 8 pounders, by going bigger. Okay, and that's a very unique scenario in big bait fishing. I'm having a hard time making a visual affirmation of what's going on down there. But these things, even though they're about the same size as this 10-inch mag draft, they'll swim the entire length of this tank. They'll swim 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet out of whatever they live in just to come check it out. They're just curious. Oh, there's a learning opportunity there for you guys. Any crankbait fishermen in the house? Nice. How important is deflection? Very important, right? And those of you guys that aren't familiar with that term and that concept, deflection is when a crankbait, like a billed lure, is swimming straight and then it hits a piece of cover with its bill, whether it's wood, rock, a dock, something, and it deflects off of that cover. Well, that moment of deflection is a triggering mechanism. That gets those fish to react instantly. They're just genetically pre-programmed to attack something that acts out of the ordinary. So when you're crankbait fishing, it's kind of like playing bumper cars for me underwater. I'm actually trying to get that thing to deflect as much stuff as possible. So I bring that up because I watched that bait deflect off of that log. When you feel that deflection with any bait, be prepared, be focused, because your odds of getting a bite in that moment go sky high. But one of the things I discovered, actually, you know, I'm gonna touch on that with another bait. The importance of deflection is just as crucial when presenting these big baits as it is with any traditional fishing. That's where your ash pile is gonna start to affect the end result, right? All that experience that you're building, all those engagements, all those hopefully successful fish catches, they all lead to that same thing. One of the biggest things I get, or biggest comments that I get from a lot of anglers, is that, man, we don't have trout in our waters. You do though, but regardless of that, it really doesn't matter. Okay, actually, I'm gonna throw that on a different rod. Matching the hatch is a concept that I employ on my travels throughout the country and now throughout the world. And what people need to realize, it's not a trout-driven phenomenon. It's a big bait, big fish eating smaller fish, which could be big phenomenon. That happens everywhere fish live, all right? It doesn't matter if they're eating trout, if they're eating sunfish. Do you guys fish lakes that have sunfish in them? Sunnies, you guys call them sunnies up here, right? I love local fishing cultures. In Texas, everything is a perch. In the South, this is a brim. In California, everybody's really confused. All right, but this is a very common prey species that you can find in virtually every body of water that bass reside in, both smallmouth and largemouth. You can start with matching the hatch here with a bluegill profile bait. This is a Megabass Italian. I'm actually a little scared to throw this in the tank just because I was fishing this in Louisiana and showed the Louisiana boys that a giant bait like this would work on their home waters. I entertained him through his little chatterbait for like 10 to 15, 20 minutes, caught nothing. I was like, all right, man, here, let me try something. And went and caught like 12 in a row. And his mind was blown that I was using a monster bait. And that was before I showed him its bigger brother. Then he really lost his mind. But he had seen what was possible with this little guy. And he's like, oh man, I can't wait to see what tries to eat that. And I'm like, yeah, man, I feel you, me too, that's why I'm here. All right, so we'll see if these fish will make a mistake. Hopefully they don't. Try my best not to hook them. But this is a very easy bait to fish, okay? Any lipless crankbait fishermen in the house? Okay, this is pretty much a lipless jointed crankbait. I mean, technically it is, it's got no lip. Okay, and I like to fish this thing with a stop and go retrieve typically. Stop, go, stop, go. This particular model is a floater. So you have floaters, you got slow sink models, and the nice thing about the floaters is that you can actually weight them with other weight options, whether it's suspend strips, they got adhesive lead strips that they sell. I'll throw on like 4 of them to get this thing to actually suspend, more like a jerk bait. And I can pause this bait in and around cover. I flip this bait in and around docks, bushes, fish it on grass lines, shade lines. They even make these little like cool clip-on weights. So super easy adjustment. My friends in Spain actually use that little grenade weight a ton in their bass fishing and their pike fishing. So as you can see there, quick little adjustment there. Now the bait's a sinking bait. Hey, and look at that. I'd call that a positive engagement. Definitely have the interest of those fish, right? Do you see me doing the same thing the gentleman was doing with the dog on the carpet? Same behavior. They're all pointed nose down on it. So now it's my job to try and trigger a reaction. Oh, they kind of like that one too. But typically the way I employ this bait is a stop and go retrieve throw some twitches in there. You guys ever keep sunnies in an aquarium or just watch them in and around docks? They kind of just hover there a lot of times, right? So this is actually too much weight for how I normally like to fish this bait. So I'm gonna find a little bit less weight and tune this bait to actually get it to hover completely still, just like a sunny would. And the bites can be pretty ferocious. I believe a lot of times that bass just inherently want to kill and crush other sunfish species. They just don't get along. So you're appealing to other triggering mechanisms besides hunger. Because really, when fish are hungry, like everybody's a superstar. All you gotta do is put a bait in the water. If it's got a hook, you're gonna catch them. Okay, but it's when those fish are inactive is when you really start seeing a separation in the skill set of some of these anglers. But those learning lessons that I had with its little brother are just gonna translate. And it's as simple as going from that lighter rod to a heavier rod, heavier line, bigger reel. I'm gonna fish this thing exactly the same way. And this is the bigger 190 millimeter battalion. And this is actually a slow sinking model. So out of the box, this one's actually tuned to sink really slow. Do you guys think this is a big bait? Like, you saw it in my hands, right? It's definitely not small. But if you were out there catching sunnies, that might actually be an average sunny, like a little bit above average. But how many videos, how many photos have you guys seen with a giant bass? Or even like a 4 or 5 pound bass choking on one of these? It happens a lot. Do not be afraid to embrace the bigger profile baits. You would be surprised. We'll catch 1.5 to 2 pound fish on these things, especially when they're just angry and aggro. Remember, like as human beings, when we're annoyed by something like a mosquito or your buddy ribbing you, like trying to talk to you during a seminar, you can just like give them a slap, right? Fish don't have that luxury. They have to attack things with their mouth. So a lot of times I feel like I'm annoying the crap out of these fish until they finally decide to just get pissed off and crush them. That goes back to understanding body language and watching these fish and engaging with these fish and triggering them. All right. So that's a fun one to talk about all the time. What else can we show you guys? Any worm or jig fishermen in the house? Awesome. What I really want you guys to understand is that you guys have quite the advantage on your hands, and that you guys actually have already built a substantial ash pile, a foundation of traditional fishing concepts and fundamentals. Oh man, my dentist is not gonna like this. And really, you're gonna take all that experience and those learning opportunities and you're gonna apply it in pursuit of the biggest fish of your life, hopefully. Okay, so I'm gonna show you guys a little something that you jig and worm fishermen can relate to. Because on the West Coast, those two techniques account for a lot of fishing. They're super versatile. The numbers don't lie. If you wanna catch a limit of good bass, fishing a worm or a jig in some form is a very high percentage technique and approach to fishing, and that should be building that ash pile like substantially. And a lot of those same lessons in presentation, mechanics, and the execution part of it are the same. You guys might be slightly confused as to why I'm talking about jig and worms when I tied on an 8-inch perch. Well, let me explain to you guys here with another little friend of mine. I will leave that right there for now. So we got a couple Megabass fans in the house, right? See a couple hats, some shirts. Yeah, front row. What's up, Mike? You guys are probably familiar with my little friend here, the Dark Sleeper. Raise the hands. Anybody fish this bait yet? Nice. Blue hat. I see you. Smart man. The rest of you guys, once again, do you guys not like catching fish? This is an incredible bait for learning, okay? And all you jig and worm fishermen, whether you like Texas rigging a worm in cover, you like flipping it, pitching it in shallow cover, okay? Whether you guys are football jig fishermen, deep structure, and you like swimming a football jig with your preferred trailer, or if you like sweeping it and hopping it, whatever your jam is, take this bait, cast it out there, and fish it exactly the same as you would your jig or your worm. This bait is the do-it-all bait. I'm trying to keep you guys distracted from the fact that I backlashed. Is it working? But it's funny, how many of you guys have actually caught a fish picking out a backlash? Isn't it great? Ever done it with a buzzbait? I did it one time in my life. Felt really special. Okay, but that should really open your eyes to the fact that fish will eat a bait doing absolutely nothing. I had one already the whole time. Okay, and this is a special bait. People ask me, how do you fish the dark sleeper? Like, what is it? Is it a swim bait? Is it a jig? It's a fish catching machine is what it is. Okay, get it wet, put it in the water. If you just want to cast it out there and put a bell on the end of the rod, I bet you that'd probably work in some situations. It would definitely work here. Look, ding, ding, ding. Oh boy. If you want to swim it like a swim bait, right? Same presentation that I had with that little Okashira screwhead, mid-column. See if that works. Asking that question. A couple followers, but they seem to really like it when it hits the bottom. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to that. Oh, hey, look at that. That simple. Always making adjustments. Okay, and it's the same thing whether it's a 3-inch dark sleeper, $7 retail. Great entry into the Megabass world, but be careful, it's a dark, slippery hole. All right. Mike knows. That hat cost him $30. Okay, and it's gonna be the same thing with this thing. So man, all you guys that say you don't have trout, I'm guessing you probably have a few of these laying around in your lakes. And I say laying around because any of you guys actually observe yellow perch either in the tank environment or in the lake? You guys notice what they do a lot? Exactly right. They don't move. When I see them in a trade show, like they're just sitting at the bottom of the tank doing nothing. If you look at this bait, it sits perfectly upright. Did you see how I was getting bites on that dark sleeper doing exactly this? Well, I get a lot of bites on these 8 and 10-inch baits doing exactly that. And I built a lot of confidence in that presentation through all of those experiences and the thousands of fish catches on that smaller bait now. Even though they weren't big fish, those are all lessons that I used and applied to those big fish. Okay, but at the same time, these things are as versatile as your creativity. If you want to go out there and slow roll them on the bottom, if you listen to all the internet experts on how to fish something like a HUD, oh, just make a long cast, let it hit the bottom, and all you got to do is turn the handle as painfully slow as you can. Like, all right, cool, that will work sometimes, but who's to say doing that is wrong? Any of you Senko weightless worm dot crawler fans in the house? All right, let's talk about the power and efficiency of that bait. What kind of inherent action does it have? It doesn't really have any. So when I'm out there fishing a Senko or a dot crawler, I'm actually lifting it high in the column and letting it do that. Does that look familiar? Hey, same concepts, just scaled up. You're gonna get a lot of bites as that bait's shimmying down. Would you ever, any of you guys, consider fishing that bait in this manner prior to this? Well, you should. There's really no right or wrong way to do anything is the point, okay? And I'm gonna go back to that deflection. All right, we talked about how important that is. So this is one of my spots in my milk run. All right, I'm confident in fishing this log because every time I come here, I've seen them suck up off the log to follow my other swim baits. I'm getting a little bit of a positive reaction, but they just won't bite it. Man, okay, but I know they live here. Location is one of the first fundamental pieces of the puzzle. If you are not fishing near big fish, you're not gonna catch big fish. It's really that simple. Okay, these swim baits are an incredible learning tool. No, he's good. Go on up, soak it all in. Live those big bass dreams, or medium bass dreams. I'm gonna present this bait in a very slow and efficient manner because I'm being efficient. Okay, I know those fish live on this spot. So I'm okay with actually either fishing off the bank or beaching my boat, putting my anchors down, turning off my graphs, really going stealth in my approach and kind of waiting those fish out. I'm gonna make a cast out there with this bait. How many fish are looking at my swim bait right now? Can you guys see that? I haven't done anything. But its mere presence draws attention. Okay, any of you guys subscribe to my personal YouTube channel? It's Oliver and I, smart man. The rest of you guys should check it out. It's free. And I started a new series called The Green Room, where I actually superset myself into old videos that I've shot in the past. And I give you a very candid, detailed breakdown on exactly what was going on in that scenario, or at least my interpretation of it. And one of the episodes, I think it's episode 3, I talk about fishing this thing's bigger brother. Same scenario, it's a big main lake point I've caught big swim bait fish off of. I've had multiple ones come up, but at the time I was actually having issues with my fish finders not displaying properly. But I learned a long time ago through fundamental fishing that if I need to take a break, if I need to eat a sandwich, drink some water, I should probably just throw my worm over the side and keep a bait in the water, because now I got a chance. Okay, so that still applies with the big bait. So before I start messing with my graphs, I make a nice bomb cast out there. It hits the bottom. It's sitting on the bottom for about 2 or 3 minutes. You see in the video, I reach down and I've actually got a right-handed reel, and I'm beep, 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 for about 2 or 3 minutes just messing with my settings. And all I'm doing is actually just kind of keeping my line tight. I wasn't actually anchored down. There's just no wind. But if you look, what you may perceive as doing nothing is actually moving quite a bit. I've got a 7-foot rod here. So even though you don't feel like you're implementing any action, that bait's actually moving quite a bit down there. Are those fish still looking at my bait? Do you notice my bait's actually just kind of doing like this now? It's alive. It's doing plenty. Okay, so I finally get my settings right. I stand up. I go, huh, that doesn't feel right. I recognize a pressure bite from that ash pile of experience. It's like, oh, it's spongy. Man, one's probably got it. Wind down, big hook set, bam! And I catch a 9+ without doing anything. Okay, so that's a technique that I really kept close to my heart for a long time. I used to be really selfish. I felt like the information and the experiences I was learning and having were hard-earned. I didn't really want to share it with just anybody. But I've become a little bit more enlightened. I enjoy coming out here to these shows and seeing people run up to the tank with those big bass streams. And man, I remember when I was that guy. Like, this is a kind of a special thing if you like fish. So shout out to all the fish geeks in the house, man. It can take you a long way. Okay, but let's get back to deflection. Okay, I'm gonna park that bait there in that high percentage area. And a lot of times what happens is I'll actually end up getting snagged. All right, lots of snagging going on in fishing. Any of you guys ever been snagged and actually caught a fish after snagging your lure? Raise the hands. All right, it's a real thing, right? So early in my swim bait fishing learning arc, I'd freak out as soon as I could feel my bait being hung. Like, oh man, and back then they were like $20, $30. Now some of the baits we're fishing are $50 to $500. So obviously that can create a little bit of anxiety when you don't make any money or you've got to hustle a bunch of aluminum cans. But go out there, man, where's my train of thought here? Oh, getting snagged. Okay, I'm actually gonna purposely try to snag this thing a lot of times because it kept happening, whether it was with a jig or a worm. I'd be out there like, oh man, I'm stuck. And I'm trying to pop the bait free of the snag, and then boom, what the heck, dude, I got a fish. It's actually kind of hard to snag this bait, believe it or not, which should give you guys a lot of confidence. Come on, snag me. Okay, there. Oh man, almost snagged. But when that bait is snagged and I'm shaking that thing trying to get it free, that bait's still doing a lot. I mean, those fish are still looking at that perch, right? But imagine you getting frantic and kind of crazy with it. Well, that's transmitting all the way to your bait. Even though it's snagged, it's still doing this. And those fish are like, dude, what are you doing? Any Chappelle Show fans in the house? Rick James, white couch, same scenario, okay? Like, bro, like, what are you doing? Those are new white couches. But they're in there kicking dirt on it. What do you think is gonna happen? Someone's gonna get checked, all right? And in that case, it's your bait, hopefully. So there are times where I would actually try to snag my lure to create that commotion and give them a presentation that they aren't used to. So in those events where you guys are actually just fishing down a bank and get snagged, don't panic. You understand that, man, now you've got a high percentage opportunity. If you can get that bait off the snag, you could probably get a bite. Too many guys be like, oh, dude, I'm snagged. Go over there, man, get my bait. And go right on top and, you know, lure retrievers, and they're jamming their rod in the water, trying to pop it off. No, take your time, have a little finesse in your game, okay? High angle. Use the little violin like string trick. Whatever your little unsnagging method is, take time, because it's worth your time to try to get that bait back fishing, because now you've got that fish's attention. And a lot of times, any of you guys use that like violin or like guitar string pluck trick? Yeah, or like a bow and arrow. Like everybody's got their little, my buddy calls it the Robin Hood. Everybody's got a little spin on it, but how many times have you actually successfully popped that bait off? Now that bait snaps off of that snag, and then wham. Well, thankfully I kind of started realizing, like, man, every time I do that, I kind of catch a big fish. So I started creating artificial deflection, especially on bare bottom stretches. Fish get on sand flats, they get on mud flats. There's no cover to deflect off of. Are you guys impressed? That's the boss. Let me get a round of applause. Yeah! Should Todd bring me back next year and keep buying me sushi dinners? I just want to thank Todd for giving me this opportunity and engage with you guys here. I have a ton of fun. I think I'm the only speaker that has to be repeatedly kicked off the tank. My man James Watson here is up next, but just think of me as the terrible opening comedian that nobody laughs at. Stick around for James, because this guy is a hammer. He's got a wealth of knowledge. Are you guys trying to kick me off right now? Chappelle Show, Wrap It Up box. You guys remember that one? I think that's what this is. Wrap it up. All right. Where was I? So creating artificial deflection. Does that make sense now? All right, if you're fishing bare bottom, you don't have anything to bump your lure into, simulate that on your own. Hey, that works out here too. And all of that discovery came about the whole mental approach that I have with my fishing, eliminating variables, going through the process of elimination, and just honestly trying it. If I listen to all of the expert advice that exists by guys that have never done any of this, I'd still be way behind in my learning curve. So once again, take these little bits of insight and just realize, like, man, it really pays to have a mind of your own, okay? I've been accused of chasing people's bites and lakes and this, that, and the third, and then I'll go look at whoever's, you know, making this claim, like, bro, you're not even catching anything. Like, what bite am I chasing? I have to go out there and fish these new bodies of water and piece the puzzle each and every time. Conditions are ever changing, guys. Like, if you're trying to fish what worked a week ago, yesterday, an hour ago, a lot of times you're already behind the curve. If you guys are familiar with a lot of the content that we've been putting out for the last 8 years, especially on the Big Bass Streams channel on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to that, you'll see, as good of a fisherman as many of my friends are, a lot of times they were stuck in that mental trap of like trying to mimic what they saw me being successful with in those kind of time frames. Like, oh man, you just caught one on that perch one, I better tie a perch one on. What they didn't realize was I observed something that gave me the clue that I need to make an adjustment. So I was actually always changing. If you look at the deck of my boat, it's always cluttered. Guys with ADD have a really hard time looking at my videos because they see 10 rods, all with different swim baits, a whole pile of baits that I've asked a whole bunch of questions about that I didn't get the kind of responses I wanted. But I'm always adaptive. I'm always open-minded. I'm always willing to try something different. So I get to have some pretty wild experiences because I can stay ahead of this curve. Like, fishing as a culture, we've been kind of beat into our brains to wait for the weekly report. find out, oh man, what's the hot bite? Oh yeah, go to Candlewood. Smallmouth bass are in 15 to 25 feet of water on blue jerk baits. It's funny, you can go out there the next weekend, you got everybody sitting on 15 to 20 feet of water throwing a blue jerk bait. Now everybody as a whole is conditioning those fish to not bite blue jerk baits anymore. Because bad things happen when you bite blue jerk baits. Really ugly human beings start hoisting you out of the water, taking photos of you, abducting you, putting you in this weird spa, and then releasing you hopefully to live another traumatic experience. If you just think outside the box and aren't afraid to fail, because there will be a lot of failure leading up to those moments, you will be empowered by the freedom that confidence that you've instilled in yourselves will give you guys. And I benefit from that greatly. I can go into, all right guys, I think that was my official cue to get off the tank. All right, I got a question from a man, Dan. Excellent question. So the basic question is, on my traditional to big bait setups, am I using braid to fluorocarbon leader? If the bait is under 2 ounces, it's 100% braid to fluorocarbon leader. Typically anything over 2 ounces, like 8" and up, I go to straight mono or fluorocarbon, just to keep from casting off my bait. It's a lot of weight. We get pretty, ambitious with some of the casts that we make sometimes. It's a lot of force and inertia. If you have any kind of backlash or malfunction in your line, or it digs into your spool with braid, all of that inertia will end up in zing, pow! Furthest cast you've ever seen in your life, right? And there goes your bait. Anybody experience that? So I actually avoided braid for a lot of my big baits, except for things that would float. But the problem was I was only fishing 50, 65-pound braid, but it doesn't have the tensile strength to hold up to that. But I continue to learn. This last year, if you guys followed my adventures, I'm fishing muskies now. I'm fishing Murray cod in Australia, barramundi, and it was a lot of heavy braid. So just to keep that from going on with my subsurface baits, I actually stepped up to 80-pound and now 100-pound to a short fluorocarbon leader. So I'm still seeing the benefits of that lack of stretch, because I got ultimate feel of control of my bait. Okay, I've got the fishability, abrasion resistance, and invisibility of the pure fluorocarbon leader, but I no longer have to deal with casting my bait off. So I'm actually experimenting more with that system on big soft baits for largemouth, because I've got to build that ash pile of experience targeting other fish. Now I'm taking insight and experience from that and applying it to my bass fishing. So a lot of it has become very braid to fluorocarbon heavy. All right, excellent question. Thank you, Dan. Look, man, this is almost too easy. If you guys want to see more of this, come back at 3 o'clock after you ingest James's seminar here. He's going to show some wealth of spoon jacking. Is that what you're calling it? But thank you guys for tuning in and checking this out today. Feel free to come up and ask some questions. I'll be off to the side here. I don't want to take any of James's thunder. And thank you guys for your time. You guys are great.
A little bit of everything, man. But that big bait though, that big bait, all about that. That grind, that moment. It's all about that one moment. You a keyboard pirate, my man, that's hella my track. Instrument you catch fish, get him in the net quick, cast for another stick. That real deal, raw uncut, still chasing PBs, cause it's never enough. My track instrument you catch fish, get him in the net quick, cast for another stick. That real deal, raw uncut, still chasing PBs, cause it's never enough.
Medium light, graphite for the subtlest bites. Some bright blue skies, not a cloud in sight. It's dynamite when I drop, and the school ignites, pinning them down on the hop, cause he's taking off flight. I'm using all of my might, securely taming the fight. No